All right, strap yourselves in because today we're going back, way back to 1991. Grunge was king. The internet was this weird new thing.
Dial-up modems, remember those?
Oh, I remember those late night downloads. Anyway, 1991 also brought us Terminator 2, Judgment Day. But before you think this is just a nostalgia trip.
Oh, we're going deeper this time.
Way deeper. Because T2, it wasn't just a movie, it's like this cultural artifact almost. We're diving into why it still matters.
Right. This wasn't just robots punching each other, though. That was cool.
We'll get to the T-1000 story. But yeah, what was it about T2, even back then, that struck a nerve? Our research, there's this phrase that keeps popping up, emotional roller coaster.
Which is wild, because how many action movies can you say that about?
Exactly. So first off, what made T2 so good at this whole emotional thing, besides the explosions?
Well, I think it's because beneath all the action, you've got this very human story. I mean, you've got a mother who would do anything to protect her son.
Sarah Connor. Yeah, we've got to talk about her.
And then John Connor, this kid who finds out he's supposed to save humanity, talk about pressure. And through it all, there's this question, what does it even mean to be human? Especially when you've got these machines running around who can
basically do anything. And that brings us to the T-1000, right? Our sources, they all talk about how revolutionary the CGI was.
It wasn't just groundbreaking, it changed everything. I mean, 1991, audiences had never seen anything like that liquid metal effect. It was terrifying, beautiful, and it blew everyone's minds.
It's like special effects went from 0 to 100 overnight. Yeah, but it's more than just being visually impressive. Didn't T2 basically set the stage for how action movies use CGI even today?
Absolutely. It's like T2 gave filmmakers this whole new toolbox. Suddenly you could depict things that were literally impossible before.
I mean, if you think about it, The Matrix, all those morphing effects, even those superhero movies we love, like the way Thanos moves in Infinity War.
That all traces back to what Cameron did with the T-1000. He didn't just raise the bar, he invented a whole new standard.
That's true. And speaking of setting standards, we got to talk about Sarah Connor. She wasn't your typical damsel in distress. Our sources mentioned the intense training Linda Hamilton went through for the role.
She basically became a completely different person, physically and mentally.
Right. But it wasn't just about making her ripped or whatever. It was about, I don't know, a different kind of strength.
Yeah.
Especially back then for women in action movies.
It was revolutionary. This wasn't a woman who needed saving. Sarah Connor was tough, resourceful. She was driven by this fierce, almost primal need to protect her son, to protect the future.
And she was scary good at it, too. Makes you wonder, though, if T2 came out today, would she still be considered groundbreaking? Like, have we moved on, or we're still chasing what they did with her character?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's tricky. On the one hand, she definitely paved the way for a lot of strong female characters in action movies. But on the other hand, times have changed. It's interesting to think about. How would her story be different if it were told today? What would they keep? What would they change?
Yeah, that's something to chew on. But anyway, back then, there was no denying it. T2 was a phenomenon. It wasn't just the visuals, it was the story, the characters. Heck, even that Hasta la Vista baby line.
Which, by the way, is instantly quotable.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond just catchphrases. We're talking sequels, box office records, the music.
Don't even get me started on that score.
Seriously, Brad Fiedel nailed the atmosphere.
So, what's the takeaway here? What made T2 stick around when other action movies, they just fade away?
Well, for one, it showed that sequels could be good, not always, but T2 proved it was possible. And the box office, that's people voting with their wallets. They wanted more of that world, that feeling.
And they got it, even if the sequels weren't all on the same level, let's be honest.
But there's something else. Remember that budget we were talking about? $100 million in 1991.
That's like a billion today, probably.
Well, it was a gamble, a huge gamble, but it paid off. And I think that says a lot about how much faith Hollywood had in this project and Cameron's vision. So they knew they had something special.
They knew they had something special, and they were right. T2, it wasn't just a hit. It was a cultural moment. People were lining up around the block to see it. And a lot of that, I think, goes back to what we were saying about the emotional core of the film.
Right. Because it wasn't just robots and explosions. There was real heart there.
Exactly. And I think that's something that's often overlooked in action movies. You can have the biggest explosions, the coolest gadgets, but if you don't care about the characters,
it falls flat.
It falls flat. And T2, it had that perfect balance. You know, one of the things that really struck me reading these sources was how much T2 seem to tap into a very specific kind of fear.
Oh, you mean the whole technology taking over thing?
Exactly. This fear of artificial intelligence, of machines becoming self-aware, which back in 1991.
It was pretty out there, right? Like
Yeah.
science fiction stuff.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
now it almost feels like we're living in the sequel, you know?
Okay, hold on. You're freaking me out a little bit here.
Think about it. We've got AI in our phones, in our homes. Algorithms are tracking our every move.
Okay, maybe it's a little too real.
I mean, it's not killer robots yet. But that underlying anxiety, that fear of losing control to something smarter, more powerful than us, that's straight out of T2. And it's something that I think we're still grappling with today.
So you're saying instead of worrying about a T-800 busting down my door, I should be more worried about, what, my smart refrigerator spying on me?
Well, maybe not your refrigerator. But it's about recognizing the subtle ways technology is already shaping our lives, you know? The choices we make, the information we consume, even the way we think. It's all being influenced by algorithms, by these systems that we don't fully understand.
Okay, that's officially on my list of things to worry about now. See, this is why I love doing these deep dives. It's not just about revisiting a movie. It's about using it as a lens to look at the world around us. And sometimes what we see can be a little unsettling.
But also thought-provoking, right? I mean, T2, it wasn't just a cautionary tale. It was a film that made us question our relationship with technology. And that's a conversation that's more relevant now than ever before.
Totally agree. And sometimes the best conversations start with a good movie. Speaking of which, did you know that Arnold Schwarzenegger only had, like, 17 lines of dialogue in T2?
I did know that. Can you believe it? The Terminator, the icon, and he barely says a word.
That's wild. But I guess it kind of works, right? He didn't need dialogue. He was just there.
Yeah.
Menacing. Unstoppable.
Exactly. It was all about his presence, his physicality, which in a way makes him even scarier, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Less is more, as they say. So before we wrap up this T2 deep dive, you got any more fun facts up your sleeve?
Oh, I've got plenty. But this one always gets me. Remember that scene where the T-1000 walks through the metal bars?
In the mental hospital, right?
Yeah. I mean, how'd they even do that back then?
Still looks good today, honestly. Like, how do you not get sliced up?
Well, it was a mix of things. CGI obviously was new, but they used it. But also practical effects, miniatures, even this old school thing called go motion, like stop motion but smoother.
Whoa, that no wonder it holds up. But speaking of iconic, that soundtrack. Chills every time.
Brad Fiedel, he understood what that movie needed to sound like.
It's not just the sense. Those are awesome. It's like
Yeah.
there's this emotional weight underneath. Grand, but also kind of scary.
Exactly. Like, the future is here, but is it good or bad? T2 never gives you an easy answer.
Nope, it makes you think. Which I guess is our cue to wrap up. But seriously, folks, if you haven't seen T2 in a while, go find it. More than just an action flick. Trust us.
It's one of those movies that sneaks up on you. You think you're just there for the explosions, but then...
Bam.
Yeah.
Hits you right in the feels. Plus, killer robots, always cool. But no, really, this whole deep dive, it's about more than just one movie.
It's about how T2 makes you look at the world differently. Technology, sure, that's the big one. But also what it means to fight for what you believe in.
To face down the impossible odds.
And sometimes to put your faith in a kid from the future.
Hey, stranger things have happened. But for real this time, gotta jump back to our own timeline. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Hope it sparked some thoughts, maybe even a little healthy paranoia about your smart toaster.
Hey, they're always listening.
Until next time, stay curious, everyone.